There's been a whole lot of Iran in the news. First, a surprise prisoner swap between the US and Iran. Then, for fulfilling its end of the nuclear deal, Iran finally saw crippling international sanctions lifted. But the very next day, the US slapped on new sanctions.
The United States is imposing sanctions on individuals and companies working to advance Iran's ballistic missile program, and we are going to remain vigilant about it.
But despite that, things are looking better for Iran. How so? For starters, Iran will be able to rejoin the world after years of isolation. The country has been excluded from the global economy since its nuclear program became public in 2002. Iran has always insisted the program was for peaceful purposes. But that didn't stop the US, the EU, and the UN from imposing sanctions to prevent the country from developing nuclear military capabilities. And that was on top of several previous US sanctions already imposed on Iran since the 1979 revolution. Since 2010 alone, Western sanctions shrunk the country's economy by an estimated 20%. Now, as part of the latest deal, the U.S. will release anywhere from $55 to $100 billion in frozen assets. The U.S. will also allow the sale of aircraft for commercial flights and the import of Iranian goods like food and carpets. And the U.S. will no longer sanction foreign individuals or companies for buying oil and gas from Tehran. However, the U.S. will maintain some sanctions related to what it calls terrorism and its human rights record. In case you missed it, Iran holds the second largest oil reserves in the Middle East. So restoring Iran's access to the world economy means exporting oil, lots of it. This comes at a time when oil prices have been at their lowest in over a decade due to a deliberate oversupply in the market. And many experts predict that the flood of new oil from Iran will push prices down even further. The biggest winners in lifting the sanctions? The Iranian people. International sanctions have taken a devastating toll on everyday Iranians. Economic isolation there led to widespread unemployment. Sanctions have prevented the shipment of all goods and services to and from Iran, hurting critical industries like construction, transportation, and healthcare. This has created a black market in which the cost of everyday goods like food skyrockets. Now, with sanctions lifted, Iran's president hopes for $50 billion in foreign investment and a significant bump in economic growth over the next fiscal year. Not everyone is so excited, namely Iran's neighbors. Saudi Arabia, the Gulf countries, and Israel are worried about what role an empowered Iran could play in the region. They've stood against the Iran deal and the lifting of sanctions. So while Iran is being brought out of international isolation, does it have to worry about being even more isolated by its own neighbors?